Society has really gone down with the culture industry. Now remember, I've talked before about intergenerational sex, which is what the pedophiles like to use as a term, rather than pedophilia. Pedophilia has bad connotations, so they call it intergenerational sex, you see. And bestiality too. They've even written reports about it. If it doesn't hurt the animal, etc., it's quite okay. Well, how does an animal, for God's sake, tell you it's okay? I mean, who asked the animal, eh? I mean, does it speak your language? But anyway, that's beside the point. This is another step towards legitimizing intergenerational sex, which they did discuss at the International Census Board Commission in 2001, about a month before the towers went down. They said they'd won the rights for homosexuality and so on. Now it was time to push for bestiality and intergenerational sex. I'll read this article when I come back from this break. Hi folks, I'm Alan Watt and we're cutting through the matrix. Just bringing some reality to light behind all the nonsense of the media and what they're really up to. And it's how media also presents different articles as either funny or whatever. They also tell you when to be angry at something and when to still laugh at something. And you can't trust them on anything because there's always another reason that they're pushing whatever they're pushing. Here's an article here about pole dancing for 9-year-olds. And it's from the UK. And it's the 30th of July. It says, forget football, athletics and ballet classes. What about pole dancing class for children? It says, the Up Your Pole Club in Lanarkshire, Scotland has launched a pole dancing class for children aged 9 to 16. Now, pole dancing is the strippers thing. That's what they fly around there and spin and all that kind of stuff and caress as though it was something else, you know. But this is what they're introducing for 9-year-olds. Now, people won't be shocked anymore because, you see, the children have already watched much music and music television where they've had all of their latest sexual updates from and transgender things. In fact, I think it was MTV was just given some award, or they rated the top one for pushing transgenders and different all types of categories of alternate whatever. But anyway, it says here, an established pole dancing school since 2002, the Upper Pole Club, is keen to promote the potential fitness benefits. Fitness, you see. Hour-long lessons cost £5 and focus on strength, balance, flexibility and gymnastics-based moves in a safe and fun environment. So it's a kind of ad, written like an ad, according to its website. It's not just wiggling around a pole. This is fitness and specifically body conditioning and strength training. Sure. But the move has sparked outrage among child care campaigners, with one claiming the classes verge on child pornography. Well, I can see them getting eventually their intergenerational sex because society's been so jaded, and we adapt to being jaded. And when you're jaded, you want the next thrill, and Hollywood will chuck out the next thrill for you, which always goes a step further than the last thrill. And you go on and on and on from there. For instance, after that meeting in 2001, there was 2 or 3 movies churned out with boys in baths with elderly women. And it was okay because, you see, he was really the incarnation of her dead husband and stuff like that. That's how they put it through, like a semi-comedy and stuff and so on, to get you used to the whole idea. Because intergenerational sex is definitely on the cards. That's part of the big mandate as well. And because the ones at the top really are the world's oldest perverts. You just look at the top families down through the generations and see how the Caligulas acted, and see how the Neros acted, and all the rest of them. See how they were when they ran ancient Greece at the top, and all down the histories since then. It has never changed. It's never changed. They're called the deviant creation. And the deviant creation has been in charge of this whole agenda, in fact, for an awful long time. Psychopathic. But they certainly use the experts to condition us to accept everything that they want us to accept, creating their society for them to live in. From Hamish myself from Ontario, Canada, it's good night to me, your God, or your gods go with you. You see, this is the age of corporations, and corporations are amongst the rulers in the new feudal system, exactly as Carroll Quigley said. Exactly as he said. You see, your government's totally in bed with corporations, completely been like that for years and years, and it's pervasive all through the system. All through the system. Everybody today is a product in your social behavior, your likes, your dislikes, your attitudes and your opinions. You're each a product of your total conditioning. And most folk are unaware of it naturally. They're like the people in the movie Brave New World. They laugh at what they think are crazy, silly ideas. They can't comprehend a different style than utter promiscuity and not bearing children yourself. Anything can be taught to people with enough indoctrination. UNESCO knows that. And of course, I've talked before about Julian Huxley, one of the guys who was the CEO of UNESCO, who went through a good part of the plan openly. And he wanted to raise children according to a good conditioning system for social, international, or world citizenship status. So that's all been done today. Now you go back to the Communist Manifesto and all the other writings churned out by the mob, and you'll find that they also talked about the total overthrow of all society and all existing institutions. That meant everything. That meant the entire culture, what you thought was right and wrong, are now out the window. And in came moral relativity, because you see, people with strong morals, it doesn't matter what they are, if they're all in it together and they believe in it themselves, they don't like it being changed. That's your customary taboos in the tribe. Once you're in the flow of moral relativity, then anything goes. But believe you me, anything doesn't go. It's what's planned to go that goes. You see? So the family unit was a big, big part of that, of course, and intersexual relations, and they want, even the whole idea, the taboos of sex with children and adults was up for grabs. And of course, Kinsey, the pervert himself, that was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation and the Guggenheim Institution, another foundation, and the Ford Foundation, came out with his totally scandalous book. Scandalous because it was not a work of any science whatsoever. It was an agenda where he tried to, well, he did, it worked. He fooled the whole world because he had such big money backing him into, he's what really goes on in bed. And he used people as the average American male. Most of the people he worked with were all perverts. He worked in the prison. He took the prisoners, convicted perverts, as average Americans. The women that he used in the interviews were mainly prostitutes. He encouraged his own staff, and I mentioned the video that's up on Google about a year ago. Very well done expose, well documented, that he used pedophiles for the studies. And he told his own staff to try everything, homosexuality, lesbianism, the whole lot, no holds barred, because you see, everything that man does is therefore normal. Moral relativity. And yet, after that was done, he was flown across the whole of the U.S., courtesy again of the Rockefellers, who had to destroy all that was to bring in the new, which is their domain, of course, their kingdom. And every judge in the land, I think it was 600 odd laws or more, affected in the U.S. alone, to do with rape, rights of the child, not getting raped or touched or molested by adults, and all of that kind of stuff. Now, it doesn't matter that the lies are later exposed. This is how these guys at the top work, always with everything. It's the same with the Gulf War scenario. We find out they're all ready to go in long before Saddam Hussein made any kind of moves. We find the same with the 9/11 scenario. They're ready to go into Afghanistan before that happened. They all knew about it. It's getting the deed done that's important. Because it only takes a few years for people to start to act out the new mores of living to destroy the old society. And generation by generation, we're plummeted down to the darkest depths today. There's another good expose of Kinsey, for instance, documenting a lot of this stuff. And it's called the Kinsey syndrome. And that's maybe up on YouTube too. I don't know. I'll have to do a search for it, or you can search yourselves. But very well done. As I say, it really won't matter today, because you understand today you're not getting the same outrage at things. Because the people today, in turn, have all been contaminated, as their generation before was contaminated bit by bit to the present. But yeah, I'll put that up if I can find a link for it, and go through it yourself. It's quite, it gets you angry. It gets you angry. Some things will get you angry so that you can't go right through something at once. Because it's so disgusting when everything is so transparent as to how these things were actually pooled on whole societies, marketed from the top. The old boys club, the very rich multimillionaires, and who also, some of them front for the multi-trillionaires, I should add to that too, have owned the U.S. Congress for years and years and years. In fact, Quigley said they'd already owned it for 60 years, and he wrote his book in the 1960s. So they had a grand design. They've followed it through until people don't even get up in arms when they hear about pedophilia anymore. Doesn't really bother them. Why? Because they've contaminated themselves. They're sitting and watching stuff on television and mainstream television, entertainment and movies, that literally is bringing them down further into degradation. And they're enjoying it. Actually enjoying it. So that's how the contamination works. The word contamination is actually the term that the communists used on the way the people are programmed. And for them, they had to get rid of all the old people, the older generations, who would not accept communism, by simply slaughtering them, because they were contaminated. Many prisoners that came back into the Soviet system after World War II, being prisoners by the Germans, were actually slaughtered because they now believed they were contaminated with Western ideas. You better understand this contamination works very, very well indeed. It's very accurate, especially if you can start off with the very, very young. But when you see classrooms of children around the age of 5 or 6 or 7 watching this perv put on a condom in front of a class, and you don't get pissed off about it, well, see, you're thoroughly contaminated. Kinsey has succeeded on you. And that's right across the board now. I've told you before, the next push by the mass media, entertainment, is for bestiality and intergenerational sex, as they prefer to call pedophilia. And that's coming. This movie's out already, and you'll see it in certain ways without even realizing it, because you're engrossed in the movie. They've caught you, the masters of magic have caught you up, and you're forgetting what you're actually seeing. In 2001, about a month before 9/11 happened, in the newspapers it came out with the International Census or Censors Board. That's all the different censors that you have on your boards of countries that you think are there to safeguard you and your culture and protect it. And the children. They met a world meeting, and they decided that now they'd won the rights for homosexual stuff to be put on television, it was right to go for bestiality and intergenerational sex. And out came the movies after that. Back with more after these messages.